Welcome to the second lecture of week 10 of BEDS 001, dear learners. Today I will discuss more on theories of conduct. In the last lecture, we have discussed what are rules of conduct, principles of conduct, and we had briefly touched upon theories of conduct. Today we will explain and go furthermore into various other theories of conduct. When we talk about theories of conduct, it is very important to talk about rationality and morality. What do you mean by rationality and morality? Hegel, who held that for behavior to be called morally good or desirable, it must of necessity be rational. So, according to Hegel, he said, in order for behavior to be called morally good or desirable, it must be rational. While defining rationality of behavior in the context of moral conduct, Hegel defined it in terms of 1. Logical coherence or consistency, 2. Generation of universals, 3. Empirical evidence in support of the generalization, and 4. Public intelligibility. So, when we talk about theories of conduct, it is very important to talk about rationality and morality, and Hegel was one of the main propounder of what is called rationality and morality, and he said when we talk about rationality, it should be a behavior which is morally good or desirable, and these rationally or this morally good behavior which are desirable should be rational. And he said, while defining rationality of behavior in the context of moral conduct, he defines it in terms of what is called logical coherence or consistency, generation of universals, empirical evidence in support of the generalization, and public intelligibility. So, what is logical coherence or consistency? According to the first condition of rationality, it is necessary that a set of moral beliefs or rules that we follow should be internally consistent. It is, for example, not rational for me to believe that others should cooperate with me or should take care of any interest at the same time, except that I must respect others' interests. So, this is the first condition of rationality. What is this first condition of rationality, which is logical coherence or consistency? It says that according to this first condition of rationality, it is necessary that a set of moral beliefs or rules that we follow should be internally consistent. For example, it is not rational for me to believe that others should cooperate with me or should take care of any interest at the same time, except that I must respect others' interests. This is the first principle. On the other hand, it will be equally consistent or coherent if I believe that others need not respect my interests just as I don't respect theirs. Or many people in this world live life according to the latter principle. We may not like their values, but we call them inconsistent, incoherent, or irrational. What is the second condition of rationality? I hope you have understood the first principle, that is consistency. What does it mean? According to this principle, it is equally consistent or coherent that if I do not respect others' interests, I should not also expect that they should respect my interest or they should expect their interest. Let me repeat, what does this first condition mean? It means that if I believe that others need not respect my interests, I also should not respect theirs. So, what is called consistency or coherence, that is, I do not expect others to help me, and they should also not expect me to help them. So this is what is called coherency or consistency. What is the second condition of rationality? It is the generation of universals or with general principles. What does this condition means? According to this condition, I must not own a principle today and another tomorrow unless these are coherent reasons for such a change. The idea of rational morality entails that our behavior should be in accordance with certain principles always unless these are valid reasons. Let me repeat. What does this second condition imply? This second condition of rationality is concerned with what is called generation of universals or with general principles. I will give you an example. According to this condition, I must not own a principle today and another tomorrow. For example, I abide by what is my moral principle, that is, do not cheat, do not tell a lie. However, if I do not tell a lie today and if I do not cheat today, I should not change this particular principle which abides by in another day, that is the next day or after a week. I should abide by my moral principle, which is do not lie, do not cheat. This principle of mine should be consistent. It should be something I should abide by, and I should not change with respect or according to the situations or after a few days. My principle is I should not lie and I should not cheat. This particular principle I should abide by given in any given situation, any day, tomorrow, the next day, after years, after months. It should be a lifelong principle I should abide by. What is the third principle? That is empirical evidence in support of the generalization. When we talk about this third condition, it means empirical evidence or good reasons for what we do. That is behavior for which no valid reason or empirical evidence can be put forth is not a rational behavior. For example, I go to a public place, I start behaving in a manner which is not expected for a normal person to behave, then that is, people will think I am behaving irrationally. However, if there is a valid reason for my behavior, that is, if there is evidence for my behavior that maybe I am suffering from maybe some disease, some mental disorder, if there is evidence or a reason, valid reason for me to behave in a certain way, then it would pertain to it would not pertain to irrational behavior, because there would be certain valid reason for it. But however, if I do not have a valid reason or empirical evidence to put forth for my certain behavior, then it is not a rational behavior. At times there are people who have what is called bipolar disorder, then they have what is called multiple personality disorder. So they behave, they do not behave what is expected of a normal person. This is because there is a valid reason for their behavior, that is because they have certain medical condition. According to the fourth condition, to be truly rational, our behavior should be publicly intelligible or acceptable. Use of idiosyncratic reasons which are peculiarly personal cannot designate behavior to be rational. So, when we talk about behavior, when we talk about rationality, our behavior should be in such a way that it should be publicly acceptable. For example, when I go to a public space, when I walk on the road, for example, I am expected to behave in such a way, I am expected to be dressed properly, appropriately in public places, and I should behave in such a way that is publicly acceptable. And this is what is called publicly intelligible, publicly acceptable according to the fourth condition, and these are behaviors which are rational because it is something which the public will accept. When we talk about defense mechanism in terms of rationalization, wherein the individual employing reasons which are not true to justify one's behavior is not rationality but only rationalization. Such reasons are not publicly intelligible because they are false. So when we talk about defense mechanism, when we use defense mechanism individually for reasons which are not true, for example, you talk to your friend, your peer, or you talk to your colleague in a loud voice. You talk to your colleague using very harsh voice. Your behavior is not rational, and you cannot use this as a form of defense mechanism because this does not justify your behavior. It is not rationality, it is not something which is publicly intelligible because they are false. When we talk about theories of conduct, we will now delve or talk about, after talking about rationality and morality, now let us talk about what is ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the normative ethical position that moral agents ought to act in their own self-interest. Ethical egoism contrasts with ethical altruism, which holds that moral agents have an obligation to help others. So, let me elaborate this particular concept of ethical egoism by giving you an example. You smoke because you want to smoke. So, this is what is called ethical egoism. You smoke because of your self-interest. You smoke because you like smoking. So, this is acting in your own self-interest. This is called ethical egoism. But you do not smoke in public places. In ethical egoism, you may smoke in your room, you may smoke in a public space because you like to smoke. This is because of your own self-interest. This is called ethical egoism. When we talk about ethical altruism, you do not smoke in public places because you have this moral obligations. You feel that because if you smoke, the passive smokers, the people who don't smoke, will be affected, will be annoyed, or will not like it, or it may lead to certain medical conditions. So, you have this moral obligations not to smoke in public places. This is called ethical altruism, which is in contrast to what is called ethical egoism. To answer the question, what rules should guide our conduct? The ethical egoist considers one's own long-term advantage as the guiding principle. The promotion of one's long-term advantage is what one should aim at. People may differ about what course of action is to be taken for the long-term advantage, but once it is clearly known that a certain course of action will serve one's long-term interest more than any other, it is chosen. So, ethical egoists will go by the rule which will guide their own self-interest, which will guide their own long-term advantage. These principles would be the guiding principles would be what would serve their own interest, what will serve their long-term interests. Under the concept of ethical egoism, At least two shades of meanings have been associated by different thinkers from time to time. So what are these two shades of meanings which have been associated when we talk about ethical egoism? These are Epicureanism and rational self-interest. So let us further talk about and discuss about these two concepts. First, let us talk about what is Epicureanism. According to them, according to Epicureanists, one should not indulge in excessive food and drink or in personal relations. One should eat and drink what is necessary for maintenance of life, because any excessive indulgence will cause disturbance to one's health, which is bound to result in unhappiness. Similarly, close relation may result in heartbreaks when there is betrayal. So, Epicureanism talks about living moderately in terms of the food or drinks. One should lead a modest life. One should eat and drink according to what is just necessary for maintenance of life. And also they talk about personal relationship. They say that one should not indulge in what is called excessive personal relationship, because close relationship may result in heartbreaks when there is betrayal. So they believe in what is called modest way of living. Hence, one should not become attached to anything, whether material or personal, that one is likely to lose and is outside one's control. One should live life in a detached manner. Indeed, the Epicurean ethics is not so much a formula for achieving pleasure as for avoiding displeasure. One should hold that a life of involvement in human affairs and personal relationship result in more unhappiness than a life of calm, withdrawal and disinterested observation. So this is the basic principle of Epicureanism, that is, one should lead a life of modesty. Then what is rational self-interest? Ayn Rand ethics states that the standard by which one judges what is good or evil is man's life, that which is required for man's survival as man. She also maintained that man is an end in himself, so man's moral purpose is the achievement of one rational self-interest. So, according to Ayn Rand's ethics, what is rational self-interest? It's the rational self-interest, according to Rand, is that man is an end in himself, and the moral purpose, man's moral purpose, is the achievement of his own rational self-interest. In social relations, for example, man should neither sacrifice himself for others nor sacrifice others for himself. His rationality demands that just as one has a right to his or her freedoms, others do have such a right. So, this is what is called rational self-interest, that is the rationality that you have your freedom, you have the right to choose your freedom just as others have the right to choose their freedom. The other you neither should sacrifice yourself for others, nor others should sacrifice themselves for you. In order to understand Rand's doctrine for self-interest, one must consider the theory of human rights that is basic to her ethics. Each man possesses certain basic rights by virtue of his nature as a rational being. Thus, he has a right to further his life by his own thought and effort. He has a right to work, right to property, right to choose his own values and pursue them. So, when we talk about rational self-interest, these are the basic rights by which man is a rational being. Each man possesses what is called certain basics right by virtue of him being a rational being. That is, he has the right to work, he has the right to choose his own values, pursue them, and so on. He has the right to liberty and pursuit of happiness. All these rights are required for living life as a rational being, but he has no rights to encroach upon similar rights of others. He has no rights to murder, rob, or enslave other men. So when we talk about rational self-interest, a man, because by virtue of his nature, has every right to pursue happiness, right to property, right to life, right to liberty, but and also right to follow his own moral values. But at the same time, this does not mean that because he is a rational being, this does not mean that he has a right to encroach upon the similar rights of others. That is, he has no right to kill, he has no right to rob or steal from others. Human beings may not only enjoy rights but also carry out their obligation towards others. Such obligations, for example, may arise if one has made a contractual agreement one is morally bound to keep. Similarly, one is morally bound to support one's children as they are his or her responsibility. However, right to life does not mean that others must provide you with the necessities of life. So, there are certain obligations that you should follow, which you have to abide by, because these are what society expects of you and you are morally bound to do it. For example, I, being a mother, is morally bound to support my children because they are my responsibility. When we talk about what is called rational self-interest, we are talking about human rights having the rights to enjoy rights, but also carrying their obligation towards others. But carrying out obligation towards others does not mean that you have the right to lie, but it does not necessarily mean that you are going to provide others with the necessities of life. They have no such obligation towards you, and forcing them to do so will be a violation of their rights. Nothing can be called a right that requires for its implementation the voluntary participation of other human beings. Rational self-interest does not mean that you are free to do anything that serves your interest, especially that which violates others' rights. So when we talk about rational self-interest, you cannot force other to follow or expect others to have obligation towards you. So rational self-interest means that it does not mean that you are free to do anything that serves your interests. It means that you serve your interests, however, you should not violate others' right and you cannot force others to serve your interests. Rather, what it means is it consists of respecting rights of others and demanding that one's rights must be respected, and also along with rights one has obligation towards those situations which have been caused with his or her participation, but there would be no obligation for those situations she did not cause. So when we talk about rational self-interest, it means respecting rights of others and demanding that one's own rights must be respected, and also along with these rights one has obligation towards those situations which have been caused with his or her participation, but there is no obligation that this person should behave because she did not cause this situation. So, in today's class we have discussed what is rationality and morality. Then we also have talked about what is called ethical egoism. We have also explained what is called ethical altruism, and also explained to you what were the various concepts of rational self-interest with regard to Ayn Rand's ethics. So, thank you so much, learners. We have discussed theories of conduct in today's class. In the next class, in the final class for week 10, we will be discussing more of theories of conduct. Thank you so much.